All right, Joe 508, how are you guys? Guess what? We're entering the fourth week of class in a 6-week class, which is awesome. So I'm going to end the information about the biology of stress and the biology today of the gut brain axis. Okay, so we also did psychoneuroimmunology last week. So you're getting exposed to everything. And you're also in the process. We are giving you some interventions. And today's lecture, we're talk about dietary interventions to reduce the risk of having, maladaptive or really bad outcomes of poor diet, and how you can change the diet to reduce the stress response in your brain, reduce negative emotions, and I'll refer you to a paper that shows that it reduces clinical depression as well. And as we know, depression's associated with very high stress levels in terms of living. So these are all pretty much put together. So you've gotten a really good overview of the kind of biological basis of this. And then Julia's going to step in later today. Today is July 20th, and she's going to step in later today. And then we'll just talk about some really, really cool, pretty standard interventions and how science has shown that they do work to reduce the stress response and improve overall health. All right? Awesome. So tomorrow is Monday the 21st, and an email was sent out to you informing you of the upcoming midterm exam, right? So you open it up, and then you have 2 hours to complete. It's multiple choice, and so if we were to come down in here in terms of activities, okay, and quizzes, all right. And here they all are. There's all your module quizzes. And then this is the midterm, you see, and it's coming up on July 21st. Okay. All right. You can take it anytime during the day. Okay. And then once you open it up, then you have 2 hours. All right. Awesome. Julia just sent out a study guide that reviews everything that we've done. Should be really, really helpful. And don't worry about this. You guys are going to do just great. Okay. Awesome. Okay. We'll go back into content here. And I can also get to the midterm as well via the content area. And so we have down here exams. And again, all I have to do is push right here. And you see that's the midterm right now. Okay. And that tells you about availability. And this is the actual exam. You see it's going to open up July 21st. Okay. And it goes all the way to the end of the day. All right. Awesome. And that's it. Okay. And then the final you see here is on August 8th. All right. So let's go ahead and get into our fourth week. Okay. And so, like I said, we got through diabetes, and I'm gonna reflect back a little bit about diabetes, because it's interesting how we can get from diabetes, when your sugar content in your blood is too high, you kind of candy coat a lot of proteins. And that sugar on the outside surface of proteins that's not normal can cause this hyperactivation of the immune system that leads to inflammation. Okay. There's also sugar molecules in the outside of bacteria and viruses that do the same thing. All right. Cause this inflammatory response. Have you ever had the flu? You know what inflammation is all about. If you ever had gastroenteritis, an infection of the gut, okay, food poisoning, stomach flu, you know what it's all about. All right. Awesome. Okay. We know that we can cause inflammation, okay, via the action of the brain, and we review in psychoneuroimmunology. So stress causes inflammation, and then clinical depression via stress mechanisms can increase inflammation. All right, that then has these really horrible side effects in terms of kidney disease and vascular disease, brain diseases. Okay. Awesome. So let's go right into this module. Okay, very topical. Okay, but there's plenty of science that backs it up. Okay, so that's the good news. You're learning something that's very, very relevant and very applicable. I'm going to refer to one of the kind of nutritionist scientific approaches, and we have many graduates from our master's program that are getting their degrees in nutrition. They're getting licensed as a nutritionist and a dietitian, and then they take that skill set and they go out into the free market, and they oftentimes they'll just set up shop. They'll become advisors via web businesses, and they explain to people how to change their diet to reduce inflammation and reduce disease, and not only from the neck down but also from the neck up. Okay, awesome. Alrighty, so I'm gonna take you through the important article. Okay, there's 3 really amazing videos that tap into different aspects of it. And then we just want you to take your knowledge and release it, okay? And explain to us, how does the bacteria in your gut influence your brain? So come up with the different mechanisms. We're going to go over that right now. It's a way for you to learn just by rehearsing, okay? Now, what impact do changes in the gut bacteria have on behavior and mental health? So, like I said, there's plenty of evidence suggesting that the different types of bacteria that you have in your gut can influence you to be predisposed to clinical depression. It's thought to influence dementia, and there's really rock solid evidence that inflammation in the gut can be a big risk factor for Parkinson's disease. Okay, all righty. Then we ask you how the bacteria could influence the inflammatory state. All right. So how does something in your gut, right here at the when we say gut, you have these specialized cells. You have these villi. Okay. So in comes the food. And the villi are these multicellular processes with blood flow, blood vessels, etc., lymph vessels, and you absorb the food and you deliver it, up into your bloodstream. It goes to all the right places. Okay, and then if the gut bacteria change the inflammatory signal in the gut and in your blood, how does it affect your brain? Okay, and then why would a vegetarian diet improve the gut-brain interaction? This is a question we asked of you, okay? And it kind of really gets at it in the article, and the very simple cartoon video. And it's, the take-home message is, if you eat a really high fatty diet, especially as we're seeing in red meat, if you eat lots of simple sugars, and simple sugars are kind of what I just had for breakfast this morning. So I went to a bakery, and they had this amazing chocolate chip vanilla cream croissant that I got. Probably wasn't the best thing for me. Okay, and so those sugars. Certain bacteria. We have more bacteria, 10 times more bacteria in our gut than we do have cells in our body. Okay, so it shows you how crazy it is down there, and which bacteria there's thousands and thousands of types of different bacteria. It all depends. They're specialized in terms of the food they eat. So some bacteria are really good at eating the fiber found in vegetables and fruits. Some bacteria are really good at eating simple sugars. Others are really good at eating fat. And so whatever food is down there, then those bacteria go, and then they divide and they push everybody out. And then whatever they're doing influences your body. Okay? Awesome. So that's the kind of the easiest way to kind of look at that. Alrighty. So this kind of gives you this background, okay? We want you to understand through this module the relationship between what we eat and the risk for disease, or the reduction of inflammation, depending what we're eating. Okay, we're going to end it with show you how dietitians are able to, through science, take all the information from, basically you take the individual components from your diet, you expose the immune system to it. Okay, you can do this in rodents, you can do it in culture dishes, and see how many inflammatory messengers, pro-inflammatory cytokines are released, or are they reduced? And sometimes are anti-inflammatory cytokines released by the individual components of your food. From that, you're going to get this inflammatory index that looks at your food, and from there, that'll give you this really quantitative readout of the risk for inflammation and disease. Okay, pretty awesome stuff. All righty. So we have this really cool. This is from the article, um, and this is a GIF, and it shows you sequentially all the different participants in this gut brain axis. Okay, all right. How the microbiome down here, these guys, influence the functioning of our brains. Okay, pretty cool stuff. All right, and so what I'll do is I'm gonna let it reload here, and then we'll go back down. And okay, and then it come down. So it go do. It loads when you load that page in. Okay, so we'll start over here. There's the bacteria right here, different types. Specialized type of gut cell that releases hormones that activate nerve cells to tell the brain what's going on. Down here, the bacteria, if they're bad boys, will activate the immune system. This is a dendritic cell and a B cell. All right, they release messengers, cytokines that affect the brain. Here is a dead cell right here. And this will happen when you have lots of inflammation activated by the immune system right here. They begin to attack the bacteria, but there can be collateral damage. And then see the little bits and pieces of the bacteria get in. They then affect the metabolism of transmitters and again affect brain function. Can lead to depression. Okay, can lead to Parkinson's disease. Alrighty, so we see this breakdown right here, okay? All right, the immune system's going after it. These contents get in. Now you're fully inflamed. You can activate the vagus nerve that will then, its activity influences the brain. The vagus nerve has both what are called efferent, okay, outgoing messengers that control the contractile state of your guts, because your gut contracts when you have food in it to push it through. But there's also incoming information that's sensing what's going on in the gut, and it goes up here, okay, via the vagus nerve, and can again influence your overall well-being and functioning of your brain. And then the very last over here, they'll show you that the outgoing part of the vagus nerve can activate right here the fight or flight system, adrenergic, right, adrenaline, that then is also, this adrenaline that is released in the gut also will affect during high stress moments. If you have too much adrenaline, all right, it will come down here and it will then impact the population of bacteria, and you see it come over here. You see the bacterial change. All right, so there's many different ways. So this is the review of this article. Right, tells you everything you need to know. Right, so I'm just letting you know. You can read this over. Goes through everything. It talks about this vagus nerve, both the incoming information. Okay, all right. This is going from your gut up to your brain, and then as well as the outgoing information. All right. It talks about those gut cells that are activated by bacteria. Okay, and they release these different types of messengers that impact the brain. Okay, we see right here that the bacteria themselves and bits and pieces can get into your bloodstream and alter the metabolism of key messengers that are produced in your brain. Serotonin is the one that is targeted by antidepressant medication. We're trying to elevate serotonin levels in your brain. But you do have to know that 95% of the serotonin in your body is down here in your gut, okay? So it can be dramatically impacted by bacteria, all right? And this is this kind of gut microbiota interacting with this, okay? The immune system, okay, gets activated, okay? It sits there and it monitors. It knows when there's good food, that you shouldn't be in high alarm, and it knows when there's bad things going on as well. It knows when there's bacteria, viruses, etc. And so the immune system, again, most of our immune system, 70% of our immune system is down there at our gut. Because you think about it, we're putting stuff in here all day long, right? So you want to catch things that are bad, okay? But you also need to have a component of the immune system that keeps things calmed down so that you can get nutrition in, all right? When things go bad, the cells like this, they open up, cells die off, and stuff comes just flowing into the bloodstream. And as I indicated here, it has lots of influence in terms of behavior. Alrighty, cool. And then this is again the metabolites, okay, of bacteria, and they again directly influence drugs like GABA. Okay, what is GABA? Gamma aminobutyric acid. most of the pharmaceutical drugs that we take, okay, alter the levels of GABA. All right. So, for example, I have a sleep disorder, so I'll take Zolpidem at night. It increases um, the way GABA works in my brain to help me get quiet and go to sleep. And they're called anti-anxiety drugs. Xanax, okay, is another one that's similar. There are drugs out there that are used for pain medication, okay, that affect GABA, on and on. So you believe it or not, your level of gut bacteria and whether or not it's gotten into your brain can affect your overall pain levels in your body. Okay, so pretty amazing stuff. This is where the science is moving forward. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to go jump. Now, this is the description. This is the article. You can either go directly into the article or I have the PDF file. I like the PDF file. It doesn't have this, okay? But the cool thing about it is it doesn't have all the advertisements either, all right? So we'll come right in here, and you can go into directly to the article as well, okay? So this is the PDF file. It talks all about it, okay? So there's everything that I listed about the function of everything. There's the GIF that's not working, okay? And then it goes systematically through everything that's going on. Now, if you want, there's more figures, okay, that exist. I'm going to get my face out of here when you go into the actual article. So that's one thing. You just, you deal with the advertisements in the article. Okay, so yeah, there's a few advertisements as you can see. Okay, so it's good reading, guys. I've given the review. Here's the PDF file. Okay, that you can get obviously. Okay, but you see right here, it's like I said, there's so many bugs in our gut, tenfold more than there are cells in the human body. So that you have to wrap your head around that. Okay, the genetics are so varied because there's different bacteria that will grow well under different types of dietary conditions. Okay. All right, so we look down here, they go through, again, the key concepts, okay? So, again, these are specialized cells in the gut that respond to the bacteria that are down there, okay? And then they release different types of messengers, okay? That is the enterocytes that will then impact the brain. The immune system also right here shows you there's so many immune system cells. 70% of our immune system is down there. Release cytokines affect our brain. Okay, this is our intestinal nervous system, the second brain as they call it. Look at how many millions of neurons are down in our gut. That affects the brain. Okay. That's the whole point of that figure, all right? You can read through all that stuff, okay? So this right here is a bacteria, and the surface is coated with sugar. That's called a lipopolysaccharide. Now, I want to make this connection to you right now. So that we also have, the condition of diabetes. We talked about stress will accelerate diabetes. Obesity is associated with diabetes, okay? What happens is when you have high blood sugar, then cells throughout your body can get coated with sugar, okay, abnormally. Every single cell inside your vasculature can get coated with sugar abnormally, okay? And that will then activate the immune system, just like sugar right here on the surface of the bacteria will activate the immune system, okay? This creates an inflammatory cascade, pro-inflammatory, okay? They show one example here of a messenger. That's interferon gamma. There's also TNF alpha. There's interleukin 6, interleukin 21, 23. These are all messengers, okay? Alrighty. They can come up, okay? And they can impact brain function, all right? Alrighty. And then some of the metabolites are going to get in there. And again, it's going to alter. These are all metabolites from these lipopolysaccharides. When they get into your body, then they affect serotonin. You see it's reducing serotonin right here and increasing these other derivatives that really can really mess with the way your brain functions. Okay? Alrighty. So they're showing again these different actions right here. Okay, look at the bacteria right here. Okay, so we're gonna change our neurochemistry that affects the brain. Okay, we're gonna see that when the bacteria enter, their contents fall apart. They get up there into the brain and they affect growth in the brain. That's what this is all about. They affect neurotransmitters in the brain. That's what this is all about. Okay, BDNF is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So it shows you all the different types of bacteria, what they do. Okay, alrighty. So this then gets into the gut microbiome and our friend, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Okay, so we can see this ongoing warfare that's going on down here, and then what we can see the negative effect that stress will happen. All right, so we see right here, okay, interleukin 6. Okay, so this is pro-inflammatory. This happened because you had this inflammatory cascade that happened down here. Gets up here and it starts activating the very same stress system that activates when you're being chased by a crazy dog or something. Okay, so now you have this chronic activation from your gut inflammation. It comes down here. Okay, and then what happens? It's going to, you're going to have this, high stress, high levels of cortisol. It's going to be impacting activity in the gut in a bad way. We need the immune system to be fighting things off. And we know that cortisol shuts down key components of the immune system, all right? So we see that increased cortisol leads to increased permeability. You get a leaky gut. You don't want this stuff inside your blood, okay? But that's exactly what happens, okay? A leaky gut drives pro-inflammatory state, okay? So not only what we're eating, okay, but stress. And guess what stress does, okay? You're craving for a short-term fix, okay, that will make you feel better. And what is that short-term fix? Okay? Simple sugars. So the first thing you're going to go to is a cookie, okay? A Reese's candy bar, a Snickers bar, okay? Because what happens is you eat sugar, okay, and it gives you this early, quick rush of serotonin, and then the bottom falls out, okay? But that sugar then caused really bad bacteria to get in here, and it's going to cause inflammation, all right? All right, so that's everything we see right here. We see a downregulation of the glucocorticoid receptors, remember, up in the brain. So that's going to really hurt our ability to turn things off, okay? Stress, chronic stress is already doing that. We heard about how the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex deteriorate. And now we see that the food we eat, okay, can cause inflammation that can do the same thing. So it's very, very additive, all right? So this is why we got to watch what we're doing. This is our friend, okay, that kind of shows everything. And then they go through a list of the major problems, okay? So major depressive disorder is associated with a breakdown in the gut-brain axis, okay, in a bad way, all right? So, and it goes through, things like these inflammatory markers, all right? Autism, okay, studies are saying that might be related, okay? Schizophrenia, okay? Irritable bowel syndrome, okay? And then, so these are different ways that you can go after it, okay? So we can look at diet and lifestyle is the easiest one, okay? Antibiotics, that's a slippery slope. We got to be careful. And yes, this one right here, this has actually been done. It's been shown from people that suffer from clinical depression, and in studies have been shown they take the feces, okay, sounds crazy, from a healthy individual that does not have any psychiatric problems, okay. They're not obese, okay, and you put that feces in, do a transplant up through the anus into the recipient. First of all, these people will lose weight, and secondly, it alleviates a lot of their problems. So there's a big market for that, and I'm going to get into that when we go back to our readings. Okay, so that's the overview of that. Okay. This isn't complimented. This is, for me, I'm very visual. So this is a really cool cartoon, all right? So this talks about the different types of bacteria all over our body. And right here, Okay. Bacteria. If I have a cut, okay, right? So I got a little cut right here in my knuckle, okay? So this, guess what? Bacteria enter there, all right? So everything on the outside world, okay? Constantly, we have right here bacteria that I might get in my eyes, through my mouth, through my nose, in my respiratory center. So it's an ongoing battle. But they do focus in this particular video on the microbiome and the importance of understanding how the microbiome works. So it's really, really cool. Well worth watching. Okay, this one right here, this second video, it focuses on just the gut to brain interaction. All right. So the first one's getting into how the different foods work. This shows you unique features of how the gut can influence the brain, as we talked about up here and down here in the text. But we can look here how it's influencing the brain through these different networks. So this gives you a real nice visual of how that happens. And then this last one is a little more complicated. It's long. The other one's this one's about 6 minutes long. This one's about 2 minutes long, and then this one right here is about 6 minutes long. And this is really cool. This focuses on the immune component. All right. So this is looking at our immune system, how it's laid out. Again, we have 70% of our immune system in our body is down there in our gut, and it can show you how the immune system does surveillance, and then how things can go south when you have bad bacteria in your gut. Okay, awesome. All right, so that's the extent of the module in terms of what you're being tested on, but this just gives you a feeling of where it's being taken. All right, so this is for your enlightenment. Okay, so this is a really cool article. Okay, that shows you the application, and these are all people that are registered dietitians. Okay, PhDs, nutritionists. Okay, and so they did an article where they study where they quantified different types of foods. Okay, and this gives you the kind of feeling of where it's headed. And again, we have many students. We have one student that actually went to Costa Rica with us. And so her business was completely online. She had clients worldwide where she would sit there and she would design diets for them to reduce their inflammation. Okay, and it was a really rewarding career for her. So anyway, all right. So this goes through the background on all this. Okay, so they talk about the dietary inflammatory index. Okay, and so the dietitians have come up with this from science that looks at individual components of food and then asks what does the immune system do? Okay, does it release those cytokines that are pro-inflammatory? Does it reduce the release of these pro-inflammatory cytokines? Or does it even maybe increase the release of anti-inflammatory cytokines? Okay, so that's kind of what they did. Okay, and what they did is they looked at 3 different diets. Okay, so they looked at fast food diets. Okay, a typical fast food. They looked at a Mediterranean diet, and then the macrobiotic. And the macrobiotic diet is grains and beans and nuts. Okay, the Mediterranean is very similar. Okay, but it can also include fish. Okay, chicken, things like that. Okay, all right. So that's what they looked at, and when they looked through that, they found that the macrobiotic Mediterranean diet meal plans had these anti-inflammatory potential based on these scores. Okay, based on they just basically took the food and then researched from the literature worldwide and were able to generate scores and they come up with this potential for reducing risk of chronic health conditions by guiding it with the inflammatory index of the food. Right, so that's what this is all about. Right, so they go through it again. It's they talk about the derivation of the dietary inflammatory index right here. Okay, and again they they looked at all research articles through 2010. So this paper is getting a little dated, but it's okay. It still works, okay? And they were able to look at all kinds of different foods, okay? And they looked at inflammatory markers, okay? Alrighty. So we looked at articles on inflammation, okay? And these are the really well-established inflammatory markers and they asked themselves, does it go up? Does it go down? Okay, and they gave a rating scale. Okay, so we see down here. All right, so if the food parameter of whatever they were looking at, that was assigned a +1. If it was pro-inflammatory, so it increased things like interleukin-1 beta that we saw in the previous article, interleukin-6, TNF alpha, CRP is one that we can all get measured when we go see our doctors. It's released by the liver, okay? Or it was given a -1, okay, if it was anti-inflammatory. Did it reduce all those markers? All right, so that's how they came up with all that, okay? They talked about their data analysis. They talked about the results, just like you guys did in your papers, okay? And what I really want to do is I want to get down here to the actual table, okay? So this is the typical diet, okay, the meal plans. And from each of these different types of foods, then they were able to generate the numerical scores. Okay, so this was they broke it down to the different types of fats, omega-3s, omega-6s. They broke it down in terms of energy. Okay, the vitamins, the minerals, etc. All this right there, and with all that, they were able to then generate this inflammatory index. Okay, the fast food diet, remember, +1 is inflammatory, so in total, its score was given a +4. The Mediterranean diet, -4 almost. Okay, so this again reduces the number of those cytokines, and the macrobiotic diet, which is completely plant-based, okay, was found to reduce it even more. Okay, so that's how that works. Okay, and so it's really kind of cool, and they give you a little more background information there. It was really nicely done. All right, awesome. Okay, the other article down here looked at antidepressive effect of dietary intervention. So this is what's called a meta-analysis. What they did is they sifted through all the literature they could find up to the point in time when they wrote the article. And so we cut right in here, okay? Okay. All right, and again, you could find more recent ones, but this really gives you the approach, and they really do a good job at the very end of giving the caveats. Okay, so they looked at studies that looked at interventions. Okay, first of all, they looked at the reality consumption of high levels of refined sugars, like my vanilla cream croissant this morning, okay? Saturated fats, okay, like we see in red meat, especially fatty red meats, okay? And a diet that's low in fruits and vegetables. Oh, my dogs are howling at the sirens. You probably can't hear it because there's nothing inside, but they are hilarious, okay? And it was, again, these are all associated with depression. So they wanted to look at interventions. They looked at the effect of the ketogenic diet, the Nordic diet that is just like the Mediterranean diet, except for it's based on what we see up in the Nordic countries. So it's a little more, this Nordic diet is really looking at food that is characteristic of, say, Sweden and Norway and Denmark. So it's a little more fish-based, okay? And then we looked at the plant-based diet. All right. So anyway, they said that the Mediterranean diet seemed to be the most promising treatment for treating mood disorders being anxiety, bipolar disorder, clinical depression. All right. And they talk about study design and really future directions. So that's what this is all about. Pretty cool paper. Great review. You guys can go through it. They talk about this like a randomized control trial. So it's just like, making sure that when you're doing these kind of studies, that you're not biased in your analysis, okay? That you really control for all variables. And so they get into some of the issues of nutrition and health and chronic disease and that part. They look at the dietary interventions. Okay, we've known for years and years and years that certain types of foods, the ketogenic diet, for example, is really useful for treating seizure disorders, and that has to do with the fact that it causes an elevation in GABA that we talked about, inhibits the brain. Okay, problem with ketogenic diet is has a lot of potential problems in terms of your vascular disease because it's so high in fat. Um, they go through all kinds of really cool studies in disease. Okay, they talk about all these different trials. Again, this is a meta-analysis. Okay, where they're looking worldwide for studies. Okay, this is major depressive disorder right here. Okay, and we're looking right, for example, here at the ketogenic diet. Okay, and did it work? Okay, and looked at the Nordic diet and did it work? Okay, um, and um, and then they come here into this discussion. They go through again. This was a big study, okay, with acronyms, okay, looking at again the impact of food. And as we scroll down here, they just talk about a key concept, okay, as why these diets are working, okay, and there's plenty of evidence that the different food types, especially in depression, are associated with the different types of bacteria. Enterotypes means the different types of bacteria that exist in the gut. Okay, and what happens is people that are clinically depressed do not have a diversity. They have one type that can be maladaptive or really bad for them. Okay, and so they talk about methods that are looking at the microbiome. Okay, probiotic supplementation, like I said, fecal transplants. Okay, dietary manipulation. Okay, these are safe and affordable ways to manipulate the microbiome, and then therefore maybe impact the behavior positively. All right. That's what this is all about. Very cool. And so they again, well, I like that paper because they give you kind of an example of what's going on and some of the the uh, the issues that are associated with this. Now, there's something else I wanted to show you down here. Okay, and see if we can find. I think I have it listed. Be patient with me. I thought here it is right here. So this piggybacks on this. So this concept that I've told you about fecal transplants. Okay, so what companies have been done, and this is going. Lots and lots of big companies have emerged. This one right here. So if you're in the business side of things, so Vendata, okay, they have been looking at GI health. What they do is they have gone through and they have isolated banks and banks and banks of the different bacteria that exist in our gut. So rather than doing a fecal transplant, they know which bacteria are associated with health and which bacteria are associated with problems. And they try and figure out the right mix of bacteria. And then they've been using it for treatment of disease, which is so amazing. Okay, so there's treatment of inflammatory bowel disease, C. difficile, which I've had before, which is not a good thing, and the clinical trials that they're doing right here for a number of issues. Okay, so yeah, so it's a really cool website. I encourage you guys to check that out. Okay, all right, so that, my friends, is it. Hopefully you got a lot out of this biological section, and Julie's up next where we're going to be doing the interventions. She's going to start with sociality.